Hi guys, it's Debbie. Another month has passed, so here I am to talk about everything I've watched, both good and bad. And of course, as always, I'd love to hear what you've been watching, so make sure to leave a comment down below. The first film I want to talk about is probably my favourite for the whole month, and a film which will probably end up in my list of best films of 2023, and that is Io Capitano by Matteo Garrone. Matteo Garrone is considered one of the best directors working at the moment here in Italy, and he is mostly known abroad for directing the original Gomorrah movie. Although the director is Italian, his new film Io Capitano is filmed in multiple languages, as it is the story of two kids from Senegal who set off on a treacherous journey across Africa with the goal of then doing the deadly crossing of the Mediterranean Sea over to Italy, which as of today has resulted in tens of thousands of people dying. Although abroad the migrant issue in Italy seems to be the hot topic on social media only now, in reality has been an ongoing issue for many years, with basically everybody here in Italy having a strong opinion on it, either one way or the other. But Io Capitano doesn't really focus on that, but rather on everything these kids have to go through on their journey across Africa. And when I say everything, I really mean everything. It is brutal. It had me crying my eyes out, cheering, reflecting. You have to watch it, especially as it's now Italy's submission for the Oscars, and hopefully we'll get more people informed on the situation. Side note, if you're interested in this topic, you might also like the film Fuoco a Mare, Fire at Sea, from a few years ago. Instead, a series I really enjoyed this month is Severance, a sci-fi thriller dystopian series which had me glued to the screen. It presents the idea of a medical procedure by which the brain of the employees of a company are rewired to completely separate the workplace from the outside world. While they're at work, they know nothing about the outside world, about their private life, who they are, what they do, if they have a family. And as soon as they exit the office, they completely forget anything that happened at work. They don't know anything about that. So from a productivity perspective, it works very well. But from an ethical perspective, so many things are wrong. Also, the personality at the workplace starts to become different from the one outside. All sorts of different complications arise. You should definitely watch this. And an interesting fact that many pointed out is how many of the work policies and how matters are solved in this particular workplace appear to be heavily influenced by the practices of Scientology. I only watched one other series this month, Normal People, starring Paul Mescal in his breakout role, which down the line then led him to much bigger projects, including being nominated for an Oscar for After Sun just last year. Anyway, in this series he acts alongside Daisy Edgar Jones. They are an on and off couple who have a secret relationship in high school, and this then influences them later on when they're at university, when they're trying to figure out who they are, what they want to do, when they're dating other people, etc. If there's one thing this series really conveys, is how bad people are at communicating, at saying what they really feel, how manipulative and controlling people can become. It covers all that side of relationships, not just the lovey-dovey star-crossed lovers idea. Moving on, a film I was really curious about and I finally managed to watch is Talk to Me, the new horror basically the whole world is talking about. It's the story of a group of teenagers who challenge each other to hold on to a creepy, cursed, embalmed hand, which allows them to contact spirits. Everything is fun, they get their rush of adrenaline until things go too far. People have been going wild about this film, saying it's the best horror that's ever been made, it's a masterpiece. Spoiler alert, it's not. It's a good scary film. I loved how the dead people are portrayed. It's exactly how I would imagine them to be. There's one scene, let's call it the bathroom scene, which it is pretty creepy, but in my opinion there are much better horrors out there. I then realised these reviews are coming from the younger audience, and this film is clearly targeted to them. I pretty much enjoyed it. It's just that with A24 you can't criticise anything without being shunned by the community. If we do want to talk about bad films, I watched The Expendables 4, which is painfully bad. The Expendables saga has some of the biggest names in the action world. Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Statham, Lundgren, you name it. And they're always on some type of extreme mission. This time they set off on a really odd mission which has about 1 million plot holes. Nothing of what they do or say adds up. The CGI is pathetic. The dialogues sound written by ChatGPT, so I think most of their budget just went into paying the actors. Another bad film I watched was Rainy Day in New York. Remember last month when I said I was going to try to watch some more Woody Allen films? Well, this wasn't the right choice. It stars Timothée Chalamet and Elle Fanning as a quirky, unbearable couple who are still trying to figure out who they are and what they want to do, etc. But in the most painfully pretentious and wannabe weird outcast way. They constantly remind you of how different they are. I think even his name is Gatsby or something like that. And the third bad film I watched this month was The Nun, a film I chose only with the potential idea of then watching its sequel, The Nun 2, which was just released. But it didn't happen, as the first one is really bad. It's set in Romania in the 50s and follows a nun who is investigating a series of mysterious events and which involve a really creepy demon. The problem is the delivery, the plot is very inconsistent, there's no character chemistry, there's really not that much to say. I'm definitely not going to watch the sequel. I then did some much needed purging by rewatching two films I'd already seen, War Dogs and Vice. War Dogs is a film I have seen countless times and which I enjoy every time as if it were the first, and I think it's a film which many avoid, as at first look it appears just as a fat Jonah Hill comedy. In reality, it's the true story of two arms dealers who took on huge jobs, commissions with the US military, supplying weapons, but doing all sorts of shady things to get the job done. This film is the perfect mix of dark comedy with real stories. The other film I rewatched, Vice, also speaks of shady US government, military businesses, but from a different perspective. It's the story of Dick Cheney, the former Vice President of the United States, how he quietly rose to power and how massively influential he was. At least that's what I have to assume from the film, because I had zero prior knowledge about his character. So I can't tell you how accurate his depiction is. What I can tell you is that this film was superbly acted, and although director Adam McKay has a style which not everybody likes, with a lot of different mediums thrown in there, he definitely knows how to keep the attention up. I then finally watched Leon the Professional, a film which you have all basically been begging me to watch, and I can understand why. It's a pretty good film. And I realised it was Natalie Portman's first performance ever. In the film, she portrays the survivor of a deadly mob attack on her family, and she ends up living under protection of Leon, her friendly neighbourhood hitman. The two bond while she is trying to process all her feelings about this matter, the feelings of revenge, while the mob is still after her. It's a pretty solid movie, and as always, Gary Oldman was just perfect. This time he plays the psychotic mind behind the attack. I then rewatched Barbie, a film I had already talked about last month. Barbie is a film for which I had incredibly low expectations, but which I then discovered wasn't as bad as expected. I found it pretty funny, especially all the Ken side of the story. I'm not going to talk about it too much, as I've covered it in multiple videos, but let's just say that upon rewatching it, I didn't find it as funny as the first time. I think I'd lost the curiosity about it, the sparkle. I then watched Birth, Rebirth, a pretty low-key horror film which I found really gripping. Without spoilers, is the story of two women who are finding an experimental way of reviving people, bringing them back to life, keeping them alive. I don't want to say too much about it to not spoil the experience. In my opinion, even the trailer reveals a little too much. I find these kind of films really scary because they are very down to earth, the dialogues are realistic, they offer very controversial ideas to reflect upon. For example, I also watched The Boogeyman this month, but I didn't find it scary because it's just so out of this world, so unrealistic, and not being scared of the dark and of things lurking in the dark, I couldn't relate to it. Even if films like Birth, Rebirth are completely scientifically impossible, they're still set in a realistic world with realistic dialogues and on potentially realistic science, if you see what I mean. So I find that scarier. The Boogeyman instead is the story of a creepy presence haunting a family, and it seems to thrive in the dark. So I don't see why they spend 90% of the time in barely lit rooms. I then watched Every Breath You Take, starring Casey Affleck, a story which I found a little underwhelming. I really like Casey Affleck as an actor, but I think the problem here was just the general production. Affleck portrays a therapist, psychologist, who ends up caught in a larger, thriller, darker story when a patient of his is found dead. I think this film really wants to follow the creepy lines of Gone Girl, Don't Say a Word, Dream House, even Gone Baby Gone with the Michelle Monaghan and a Casey Affleck duo, but it was barely gripping. It ended up being very predictable, not really worth it. Speaking of thrillers, just this morning I watched Netflix's new film Reptile, starring Benicio del Toro, and I'm still trying to gather my thoughts about it. Crime thrillers are probably my favourite genre, and this film does tick a lot of boxes of things I enjoy. Del Toro investigates a brutal crime, and a prominent figure in the investigation is a successful real estate agent portrayed by Justin Timberlake. It's not a terrible film, it's pretty chilling. It does fall into a lot of the usual crime thriller, dark investigation tropes. I'm complaining so much this month, aren't I? This month I also watched Pablo Larraín's El Conde, which depicts the Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet as a vampire who, after centuries of hunting and killing, decides to give up on that life. He wants to die. He starts following a vegetarian diet, and his family gather together to figure out what to do about this. In addition to all of this, a nun is sent to the family home to exorcise him under the disguise of a tax agent. I'm not sure exactly what she was pretending to be, but her figure uncovers a lot of the evasions and dodgy and straight up illegal practices El Conde carried out over the years. You just have to watch it, because it's a trip. Another trippy film I watched was Greener Grass, which I thought was from the 90s, and instead it was released in 2019. This movie takes the concept of absurd and weird to a whole new level, and still today, I still haven't understood what it's really about. It's all set in an absurd neighbourhood in which everybody wears teeth braces and they only drive golf buggies, and it mostly follows the mums in their daily activities, the school runs, the household chores, etc. But all their interactions are nonsensical. For example, one of the mums just gives away her baby to another mum. They eat food off the floor at restaurants. One of the husbands only drinks pool water instead of regular water. I really don't know what to say about this film. It was an experience. Another weird film, but nowhere close to the absurdity of Greener Grass, was Queen of Earth, starring Elizabeth Moss. I'm going to be honest, and I admit I didn't really understand what was going on, what the story was about, because there are constant flashbacks between the past and the future, and I don't know, I probably have to rewatch this film. It's basically the story of two friends who are spending some time together in a remote cabin, but during their stay they began to analyse their relationship, and Elizabeth Moss's character basically becomes insane. I'm just going to have to rewatch this because it left me very confused. I then watched Speak, starring a very young Kristen Stewart as an outcast high schooler who doesn't really fit in. She is ignored by everybody, or everybody speaks over her, doesn't really understand her, to the point that she comes up with the idea that nobody would even realise if she were just to stop speaking, especially after a dark event happens in her life. While I was watching this film, I couldn't help wondering whether this was the inspiration for her casting in Twilight. I know Kristen Stewart was chosen from the set of, I think it was Adventureland, but in this film she's so similar to Bella from Twilight. I then watched See How They Run, for which I think I had the same reaction everybody had, and that was just meh. Although it stars one of my favourite actors, Sam Rockwell, I'd been putting off watching this film because I kept on coming across reviews saying how underwhelming it was. And after watching, I can agree. I think that from the trailer, how this film was promoted, everybody was expecting a sort of Knives Out meets Wes Anderson, but everything went wrong along the way. It's a whodunit movie about the investigation into a murder at a theatre in London, and Sam Rockwell and Saoirse Ronan are the policemen looking into it. I wish I had good things to say about this. I guess Rockwell and Ronan were both good as usual, but the rest was just plain boring. No intriguing twists and turns, just wannabe quirky one-liners. It just didn't work. And last but not least, for the short films, we have Carl's Date, which is basically a spin-off of The Sun, which basically is a spin-off of Disney's animated film Up. Up is the story of an elderly man who sets off on a crazy adventure with a Boy Scout when he ties balloons to his house and basically flies away in it. But right at the beginning of the movie, there is a segment which shows him and his wife before she passed away, their dreams, their young years, their struggles, and it had the whole world in tears. Most people love Up basically just because of that segment. And now in this new short, Carl is invited out on a date with a new woman and has to figure out what to do with the help of his adorable dog. And yes, I cried even for this story. But with that, we have reached the end of today's list. I would love to hear what you think about all these titles I've spoken about. Hopefully next month I won't be complaining so much about everything. And of course, let me know what you've been watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.